Hello, everyone. I'm Janet Salmons, and I'm pleased to be joined today by Vicky Loras, who is a doctoral candidate and the editor of the Meet the PhDs newsletter and podcast. So, thank you for meeting with me today, Vicky. It's great to have this chance to interact when we've crossed paths online in the past. So your newsletter is aimed at kind of the PhD community with so many changes going on, in the world of publishing and in academia, across the world. What do you think is most important for people who are either considering entering a doctoral program or current doctoral students? Where should they prioritize their efforts?
Mhm. So, first of all, they shouldn't be afraid of rejection because it comes quite often in your academic career, even when you're an early career researcher. It can come in the form of when you're applying, that the supervisors can't supervise you, or in publications, you might submit something and it's rejected. So don't be afraid of that. See it as feedback, constructive feedback, whatever it is. Keep going. And
Mm,
I know you can feel disappointed, but as I did too, because when I was applying for my PhD, I got a lot of rejections. Either people couldn't take me on, or they were retiring, or any other reason.
mm,
They didn't agree with my topic, and I was disappointed, but I thought, okay, I'm gonna find somebody who
mhm,
can be with me and I can be with them too, which happened eventually. Now, for example, I am resubmitting my very first journal article, which has been turned down a number of times, and they tried to see it as a constructive thing. Like, okay, I need to rewrite it. I need to make it better. They know, and they are teaching me how to do it. So I think whatever you do, you shouldn't be afraid of being turned down or being told to do better in something,
mhm,
rather than seeing it as a teaching opportunity. And you can get help if you're not by yourself.
mm,
I see this, for example, I started my PhD right when COVID broke out.
mm.
So that was really difficult. We
Right.
immediately switched online. When we were in the beginning, we were meeting every month with my supervisors and our cohort, and it was so fun. Immediately, we switched online, and I felt so alone. And I thought,
Mm,
oh dear. So, what I did was, I did the same thing as I did for my English teaching career, because that's how I started. I'm an English teacher. I immediately connected with other PhD researchers online, either on social media, or I reached out to people who were doing something, who were working in a similar field with me. Don't be afraid to do that either. I have to advise people. Some people will answer, some won't. That's absolutely fine. But you will find your niche and you will find your people out there. That's for sure. I had people answering, they were like, oh, that's great. Let's meet, or after the pandemic, or let's meet online. The online community is
mm,
so powerful. That's how I found you as well. And I was watching all your webinars and all your material, reading all your material and everything. So just think that you're not alone, even if you're on a computer by yourself. You're really not alone. Just reach out to people, build your presence online. Don't be afraid to tell people what you know, because we're afraid to tell people I'm good at that, or I like doing that, because we think that people
mm.
are going to think that we're full of ourselves or something.
Right.
Or just say, I'm not really good at that. Can somebody help me with
Right.
R, for example? I did that quite a lot. So don't be afraid to
But
reach out to people.
so I think, going back to your kind of initial points,
Hmm.
it sounds like one of the things that we have to have is kind of a balance between confidence in ourselves,
Yeah.
saying like, I have uh, important questions that I want to study. What I am going to bring to this is
Mhm.
going to be something unique that, I have a vantage point, based
Mhm.
on my life experience and my academic preparation that, and I can feel confident about that, even if you are not, a traditional student, which I was not. I went back to school later and had, had already
Same
had,
here.
other professional experiences,
Mhm.
but, wherever it is you're coming from, to feel on one hand confident
Mhm.
and to be able to speak to that, to what you're bringing to the
Mhm.
scholarly conversation, but at the same time, to be open to criticism and learning and critique, and to not take offense at that. And
Yeah.
certainly, I mean, we can't pretend that, there aren't people sometimes who just simply have um I don't know what I would call a bad attitude. We're
Yeah.
not, we were just going to give bad comments,
Mhm.
whatever it is that you've done.
Yeah.
And, and so you have to be able to discern and, say,
Mhm.
thank you very much. But then find those people who really care about the
Mhm.
development of that field of study, who want to see you succeed,
Mhm.
and to find those people and listen to them. So it's kind of a little bit of a balance,
Absolutely.
because if you're too confident and you think like, I already know everything and you can't
Everything.
tell me anything, then you're not going to get anywhere, as a
Mhm.
scholar. But at the same time, so it's a little bit of a balance as you grow into, I think,
Mhm.
being a scholar. And I like to use the term scholar because I think it's as a scholar we do research, but there's something
Mhm.
about being a scholar that is, an identity around being curious and
Yeah.
learning and growing,
Mhm.
throughout your not only your work life, but
Mhm.
in your life, as a
Mhm.
whole.
Yeah, absolutely. And speaking of confidence and entering school late, I also entered my PhD quite late compared to other people in my cohort. I'm the oldest there, so when I started, I was 40. And a comment that stayed with me up to a point was when I was applying for my PhD, one of the people I reached out to told me, "Aren't you a bit old to start now? Like, do you want to start an academic career?" And it really threw me off. And I thought, oh, maybe they're right. And maybe this,
Mm,
until I met my current supervisor, and he told me, "Vicky, do your thing. Vicky, you're doing your thing. You're doing
mm,
what you love." And um, I realized that, yeah, sure, I am the oldest in my cohort, and most people are a decade or more younger than me. But I see them as learning opportunities because they teach me new tools and they've been in academia their whole
mm,
path in life. And I'm thinking, oh, okay, yeah, I'm learning so much from them, which is true because they know all the new tools and all that. And then one day one of them reached out to me and said, "Oh, you know what? I'm starting to teach right now, and you've been teaching for so long. Can you help me?" And I thought,
mm.
"Oh, I can give back to them as a
Right.
thank you." Yeah. So we're
Right.
helping
And
each
I
other.
think I think I mean, if you are going into a PhD program because you want to pursue a traditional academic career, become a professor,
Mhm.
and which is very competitive to get, a
Yeah.
good position, um, then, but that's not the only path you can
Yeah.
take with a PhD. And
Hmm.
in my teaching career, I'm not teaching any longer, but I worked with adult students who were returning to school after,
Hmm.
having a career or being in the military. Um, in some cases, people who had done, what they had to do to
Hmm.
support their families, and now, their kids are grown and they're like, okay, now I'm going to pursue the
Hmm.
things that I care about. So, I
Right.
feel that, part of my discussion of being a scholar is that, it it's not only a job, it's more
Hmm.
than a job. It's
Yeah.
really kind of how you are approaching things in the world. And there are many places in terms of employment
Mhm.
that people can aspire to, in addition to the certainly valuable role of being a professor and a supervisor and a
Absolutely.
professional researcher.
Mhm. And that's why I entered the PhD world, let's say, because first of all, I wanted to learn how to do research properly. And I really wanted to learn about the topic that I'm pursuing right now. And then I thought, oh, maybe I could continue with teaching because right now my day job, let's say, is I teach at a business college. So adult students like you who are
Mhm,
returning to school. So they're my study buddies, let's
mhm,
say they're also parents or a little bit older or my age. So we kind of see our lives in parallel. They say, "Oh, Vicky, you're my teacher, but you're also a student. That's so cool. How do you
mhm.
motivate yourself?" Or I ask them.
Right.
So yeah, I'm thinking I can do so many things with a PhD, not only teach or not only do research, I can do other stuff as well. Yeah.
And so you mentioned a moment ago about the
Hmm.
importance of building your online presence and kind of finding your
Hmm.
community. And this is one place where I feel that a lot of kind of PhD students and new PhDs, they're so focused on trying to get those scholarly articles. And in some cases,
Yeah.
that they may be doing a dissertation by publication where
Yeah.
that's required. And so you've got a timeline, you've got to get that done.
Hmm.
But, how do you see, kind of the more informal writing and online interactions complementing those activities?
I really like that. And I think it's really, really useful to just keep writing, either if it's the form of a newsletter or just writing about what interests you. Like I keep a journal where after I have a meeting with my supervisors, I just go there and I write what we talked about. But I also develop my ideas. I think maybe I can do that thing or maybe I can
Mhm,
do that thing. Then when I go back to it, first of all, I think, oh, I'm glad I wrote that down and I remember it
mhm,
now. And sometimes I think, yeah, no, I'm not going to use that. And sometimes I think, wow, did I write that day? That's great.
mhm,
So I think it really develops, like I have a handwritten journal. So I think it really develops your thoughts, no matter what kind of writing you're
mhm,
doing, because I'm also doing a PhD by publication in Switzerland where I'm doing it. They call it cumulative PhD. And sometimes you feel the pressure and you think, oh, until the end of the year, I have to submit. I have to do that,
mhm,
which can be pressuring, but I try to see it as a pleasant experience. And also the other types of writing I do, like the journal writing, or I have my newsletter every Saturday. I see it as the fun writing too.
mhm,
I mean,
mhm,
article writing can be fun too, but sometimes in combination with deadlines and you have to have this done by the third year of your PhD can be a little bit pressuring. And I would say sometimes the formal writing can turn out okay, but if you can't do it, just don't pressure yourself. Do some other type of writing that can just
mhm,
keep your mind going and
mhm.
your research going ahead.
Right. I think, when we look at, there so many journals and so many articles and
Yeah.
new ones are coming out every month. And
Hmm.
it's, it's a big world of materials,
Hmm.
databases full of all of these journals. So how do you, kind of make your place in the world? And by doing the kinds of things like you're doing with, writing a newsletter, or if you're someone who does not want to make the commitment of creating a regular newsletter, which is
Hmm.
a big commitment to make. Look for other people who have newsletters in your field.
Yeah.
Can you
Hmm.
or blogs or
Hmm.
other kinds of channels, and
Hmm.
see if you can contribute. I'm doing, could I write a little something? I've got this, or maybe it's a piece of something, like it's a
Hmm.
really interesting figure or model or
Mhm.
visual that you could just write something small about, to just, getting your name out there so that,
Mhm.
when you do have those formal publications of articles or book chapters or books, that people will say, oh, wait a minute, I know who that is
Mhm.
because I've seen something. So you're kind of
Mhm.
building your reputation. And I think
Mhm.
today, it's certainly for academic employment, they're going to look at those peer-reviewed publications, but they're also going to look to see, well, what's your activity in the world? Um,
Mhm.
One of the things that I've always suggested to students is to look
Mhm.
for the professional societies in their fields,
Yeah.
especially as a student, you can join at a student rate, which is not very expensive. And then you can find, well, who are the who are the big names, the big thinkers, the important people in my
Mhm.
field? How can I, get
Mhm.
involved, to be on a committee or to join in some way.
Mhm.
Um, have you had any experience like that?
With an association, you mean, or
Mhm.
something like that?
Right.
Yeah. Mhm. Um, well, I'm a member of the Swiss Linguists Association, and sometimes they hold workshops or a big conference and so on. So, um, in the beginning, I thought, yeah, maybe it's a little bit too formal and people don't want to talk. And so I remember somebody wrote something. Can I mention LinkedIn? Somebody wrote
Mhm.
something on LinkedIn where you can write a longer
Mhm.
text. And I really liked what she wrote. And I reached out to her by private message and I said, oh, you really helped me with that thing.
Mhm.
And she said, oh, really? I just wrote it off the top of my head as an informal thought that I was doing that thing and I was
Mhm.
using that tool.
Mhm.
So then she kind of remembered me. And
Mhm.
at another conference, she told me, oh, yeah, Vicky, I came to this conference to listen to your talk because, so we had this kind of
Right,
friendship, let's say.
right,
Yeah.
right.
Hmm.
Yes, I think, so, that's something that I would suggest to our
Hmm.
our viewers
Hmm.
here, to look around and
Yeah.
if you don't know, what societies
Hmm.
kind of serve your field,
Hmm.
ask, your supervisor or
Yeah.
other people, within, kind of your
Hmm.
field of study, where will be the right place to get involved. I know,
Yeah.
for me, like I kind of I dipped into a variety of associations and tried to just
Hmm.
find like, well, where, like what's a friendly place? What's a place
Yeah.
that has, a group that has um activities I can engage in, that
Hmm.
that are
Yeah.
going to help me learn. And,
Hmm.
I was very involved with the Academy of Management because I used to teach leadership and ethics in a
Hmm.
school of business. And
Hmm.
I found that to be, I used to say going to the conference was like a postdoc,
Yeah.
experience, because it was such an immersion, to have
Wow.
that experience.
Hmm.
Um, so that's something that I think is really important. I'm an
Hmm.
association I'm very active with now and would suggest to our viewers is the Textbook and Academic Authors Association,
Yeah.
TAA. It's
Hmm.
not an expensive association to join, and
Hmm.
they have tremendous resources for new writers and experienced
Hmm.
writers, and all kinds of things about contracts and royalties and, the nuts and bolts of, the kind of profession of being
Hmm.
an academic writer. So,
Hmm.
lots of support.
Hmm.
Next week I'm um, offering it's like a conversation where, people informally log in. It was something that was started during the pandemic and
Hmm.
has continued because people like it, that you could just log in and, talk about a particular topic. So, what
Yeah.
that's one that is valuable, whatever discipline you're in. So,
Hmm.
look for those places where you might be able to engage, where you
Hmm.
can also think about presenting, where you can present as a
Yeah.
student and get out there. So you're talking about your work.
Mhm.
You learn how to talk about your work. You learn how to talk about your work to people who are maybe not in the same exact niche that you are. So
Mhm.
just that process of being able to explain your work,
Yeah.
I think is a really useful learning experience. And then, most societies have their own blogs and
Yeah.
newsletters and things like that. So those are also opportunities for this kind of informal writing,
Mhm.
but that is going not to just the broad general public, going to people
Mhm.
who are in your field so that you can begin to have some name recognition and make some of those kinds of friends. Well,
Absolutely.
why don't you just tell us a little bit more about your newsletter?
Mhm. Well, my newsletter that comes out every Saturday on Substack is, I would say, quite informal. So I'm sharing my experiences from my PhD so far, what I'm doing, how I'm doing it. I'm getting a few comments from people who are sharing their experiences too. So that's really valuable. Sometimes I also add a music highlight to make it a little
Mhm,
bit pleasant. So the newsletter, yeah, is basically anything that I've experienced, and I think, oh, this week I'm going to write about that. Or
mhm,
this week, for example, I joined a new social medium, and I find it quite friendly over there. So I was thinking of writing about that this week or the next. I'm not sure yet.
mhm.
So I'll probably share our conversation this week if it's okay with you.
Yes.
So yeah, that's my newsletter. It's a pleasant newsletter. It's not stiff and formal.
Mhm.
Um, it's just sharing experiences from my road to the PhD and also some of my teaching ideas. Lots of things. Yeah, but mostly about the PhD. Yeah.
And then you also do podcasts.
Yeah.
And
It's on a hiatus right now a little bit, but I want to pick it up again.
mhm,
It's called Meet the PhDs. So I basically interview anybody who is in the world of PhDs, who wants to do one, who's doing one, who has already done one,
mhm,
who has started it but stopped it, who's a supervisor. And we just talk about their experiences in general, their highs and lows in the PhD. So it's a pretty frank discussion.
mhm.
We try to keep it positive because there's so much negativity around being a scholar. And sure, there are bad moments too, but I feel sometimes there's so much negativity. And I think, okay, yeah, let's keep it as pleasant as possible
Right,
without being unrealistic. But yeah.
right.
Hmm.
Yes, I think, it's really valuable to
Yeah.
affirm
Hmm.
the importance of further education and
Hmm.
advanced degrees. For some people, maybe that advanced degree is a master's degree,
Yeah.
or a professional doctorate, like a, their EDD, and there are
Hmm.
other kinds of doctorates that are more oriented to practice than scholarship. But I think having that
Hmm.
affirming approach and being able to kind of learn from one another, and perhaps for some people it's valuable having someone
Hmm.
online because maybe you feel a little bit less intimidated than you might
Hmm.
with people. You could be a little more candid, say,
Yeah.
might be with others. So, well,
Hmm.
is there anything else that you'd like to share?
Um, just that if you're thinking of doing a PhD, go ahead and do it. It's such a beautiful community out there,
Mhm.
online and offline too. You'll get tons of support that you never imagined, and it comes from different places. If you're thinking of not doing one, but just learning for yourself, go for it.
Mhm. Mhm.
Yeah, I would say just whatever you're thinking of doing, go for it. Don't be afraid and reach out to people. It's so
Right,
important. Yeah.
right.
Hmm.
Well, thank you for taking the time to
Thank
chat
you
with
too.
me, and I hope that our readers will find it useful to think about some of the points we've shared here today.
Thank you so much.